Hey everybody, it is You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions. And this week, my first question comes from Superman Returns, Is Shit Man of Steel is Better? Who says, Hey Steve, I got a question. I seriously injured someone during an MMA match, and I punched him really hard in the head, causing a knockout. Now he has to go into brain surgery because he has a subdural hematoma, which is a collection of blood outside the brain caused by head injuries. I know technically it's not my fault, but I still feel so guilty, and I don't feel I could do MMA anymore. I used to look at MMA as a sport or even art, but now I see it as a barbaric thing. I can't see myself hitting someone again. My coach told me to take as long as I need, and I haven't been in class for a month. I feel like quitting. Would you quit in my shoes? Thanks, Steve. P.S. I was in Superman Returns, Superman Does Not Throw a Single Punch, and yes, I'm just trying to get a rise. Oh, see, I knew it. Oh, I knew it. I was right. At least in your case. It's so good to have partial vindication, have my suspicions confirmed. I don't blame you for quitting or for wanting to quit. I mean, I know if I were in your situation and I had caused someone to have an injury like that, I would probably be questioning it too. I mean, I would probably feel that way no matter what sport it was, but particularly for MMA because it is a combat sport and it's weird. It's sort of, there are two things going on at once. You're fighting each other. You want to fight and win, but at the same time, you also want to make sure that it stays within the boundary of sport, and you don't want to really hurt the other guy. So, I mean, it's tough to toe that line sometimes. I don't know, if I were in your position, I would probably want to quit too. Now, as for whether or not you should quit, I don't know. I mean, some of this comes down to officiating. I feel I do think that combat sports can, even though they can be very brutal, can also be safe if they're officiated properly, if the rules are in place and are strictly enforced so that the guys or girls who are fighting each other in the MMA match aren't allowed to really seriously hurt each other, you know. But I don't know. I mean, personally, one of the reasons why I prefer professional wrestling, which is a worked sport as opposed to a legitimate combat sport like MMA, is because of the brutality. There's something just a little unseemly about watching people really fucking hit each other really hard and really try to knock each other out or try to hurt each other. Even though technically they're not trying to hurt each other, they're trying to win the match, but still, yeah, I don't really have that much of a taste for it. So from where I sit, I don't blame you for feeling bad about hurting the guy and for wanting to quit. Muffeteer, hey Steve, I'm a massive comic book fan and share your feelings that we do not need another bloody Spider-Man origin film. While having this conversation with my brother and some friends, we agreed that portraying Peter Parker as an old, retired Spider-Man would be a good idea, as it would avoid his origin. With this, the movies could introduce Miles Morales and have him take over. What are your thoughts on showing Miles Morales as Superman instead of Peter Parker in the movies? Also, who's your favorite Spider-Man villain? Mine is Mysterio, because he's motherfucking Mysterio. Cheers. I don't know if I really like the idea of an old, retired Peter Parker. I think Spider-Man has to be a youthful character. I just think it sort of cuts against the whole idea of Spider-Man to me. My whole image of Spider-Man is of a young person. So I don't know if I'd really like to have old, retired Peter. But I do think they should skip the origin. They don't need to have Spider-Man be an old person to skip the origin. They can just pick up after he's already Spider-Man. We know he's Spider-Man. We know how he got the powers. The story can just begin when he's already been Spider-Man for a couple years even. You know, maybe he's out of high school or he's just about to graduate high school or, you know, he's still a young, youthful person, but he's been Spider-Man for a while now. The status quo has been established. But yeah, I would love to see the Miles Morales version of Spider-Man on the big screen. And if they wanted to do that, I think they wouldn't even have to introduce Peter Parker. Maybe they could have it be like where Peter Parker is already out of the picture. Either he's dead like they did in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, or he's retired, or you know, whatever happened with Peter has already happened, and Miles is already there established. Again, you don't really need to retell an origin or to set things up. You can just jump right in media res, as it's called. Just jump right in, and if you tell the story well enough, the audience will get it. I don't think you need to painstakingly tell the origin, and I also don't think you need to explain in your premise why you're not telling the origin. You can just skip it completely. It's unnecessary. As for favorite Spider-Man villain, I mean, Mysterio's cool. I've always kind of liked Mysterio. He's kind of goofy for my taste, but then again, it's Spider-Man. They're all kind of goofy. I don't know. It's tough to not pick the Green Goblin, the original Norman Osborn Green Goblin, just because that character was so important to Spidey, especially in the early years, and there's such a personal connection between those characters. It's hard not to pick Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin, especially when he was portrayed on screen so wonderfully by Willem Dafoe, who's one of my favorite actors. It's a cliched choice. It's like picking the Joker as your favorite Batman villain, but I would probably have to go with the Green Goblin. Vicky Lautrec, dear Steve, there are many historical figures who had enlightened views on religion and the separation of church and state, composers who produced beautiful and emotive works, scientists who revolutionized the way we now understand the world, cosmos, etc., etc. These people, as we know, were far from perfect. Many of them had views on race and slavery which we now find reprehensible. How do you justify quoting someone like, for example, Voltaire, who by today's standards would be considered racist? I've quoted Voltaire in regards to religion, but I absolutely do not hold his views on race. Should I be quoting him and people like him at all? Well, oh, sure. Look, I'm a huge admirer of Voltaire. Voltaire is one of my very favorite writers and thinkers. He's probably one of the main reasons why I'm an atheist. I discovered Voltaire's writing before I identified as an atheist, many, many, many years before I identified as an atheist. I started reading Voltaire when I was like a teenager. And his essay in the Philosophical Dictionary, his essay on religion, it's sort of a dream story of a vision he supposedly had. I'm sure it's all invented. A vision he has of going to like this sort of heavenly place and seeing a vision of Jesus and encountering all of these other sort of deity or prophetic figures from various religions. And it's a really wonderful piece. And the message is basically, the sum of religion should be to love God and to love other people. And that's it. Anything other than that is just rules that people are piling on that are unnecessary. And I thought that was an incredibly powerful statement, to strip all of the trappings of religion away and stick with just that one very simple phrase that we find of Christ's in the New Testament: love God and love other people. Voltaire was not an atheist; he was more of a deist. And obviously, I would omit the love God part as an atheist and just say love other people would be just fine. But that was a very powerful influence on me as a young person. So no, you have to make allowances. Yes, some of the views of Voltaire would not be considered acceptable or mainstream or tolerant today. That's true. It's a good thing that our morality and our views of certain things have evolved over the years. It's a good thing that today's idea of open-mindedness or racial tolerance is not the same as it would have been 300 years ago. So you have to make allowances. It doesn't mean that Voltaire wasn't a brilliant person, a brilliant writer. It doesn't mean that he shouldn't still be studied and quoted today. It just means that he should be considered a man of his time. Just as one of my other favorites, Thomas Paine, was a man of his time. Just as Abraham Lincoln was a man of his time. You have to be given, you have to make certain allowances. And that's why you should use your brain, and you should be thoughtful, and you should look at these great thinkers and writers and philosophers of the past as sources of knowledge and of wisdom, but not as authorities. You shouldn't treat their writings or their thoughts as scripture. You should read them critically, and you should make those adjustments, and you should give it that kind of a thought that you have obviously given it. But no, it doesn't mean that you should ignore them or avoid them. Lewis Aang 114, a morbid question. If you die, do you want Ashley to find another love? What if it is the other way around? If Ashley dies, would you find another partner? Yeah, I would want her to. I would hope that she would grieve and then she would move on and she would find happiness in some way. If happiness means finding another person to be in love with, then that's what I would want for her. I think it's really kind of selfish to say that, I would hope that she would just stay alone for the rest of her life. I'm not going to be here if I die. If I die and she's still alive, I'm going to be gone. I'm not going to exist anymore. So I have no claim. I have no right to expect her to do anything, nor will I be around to do the expecting anyway. So it's completely out of my hands. But hypothetically, imagining what it would be like while I'm still here, if I weren't here anymore, of course I would want her to have a happy life. I want her to move on and find somebody else. If I were not here, yeah, I would. I mean, it is a morbid question. It's an incredibly sad thing to contemplate. But yeah, that's what I would want. That's what I would want. And I mean, to me, the real morbid question is the other way around. You know, to ask me to figure what I want to find someone else if she were gone. You know, I mean, that's a more difficult question to answer because just emotionally, you know, because I mean, obviously, in principle, I should say, well, yes, I would want to find someone else. You know, I would want to move on with my life and be able to find happiness again. But it's difficult to say that from an emotional standpoint when you're contemplating the death of this person that is so important to you and that you love so much. It's difficult to say that, and in a very direct way. So I mean, in principle, that's what I would want, but it's very difficult to contemplate that. It's not just a morbid question; it's a terribly sad question to try to imagine something like that. And I don't, if I can help it. I don't imagine that because it's you know, it's incredibly sad, and it's something I would want to avoid at all costs. So thank you, Lewis, for forcing me to think about that. I really appreciate it. Terry James, how would you define right wing and left wing? It seems the so-called right generally believes that there are natural orders that can't be messed with, while the left is more about changing these orders for the benefit of relatively disadvantaged groups. Well, that's an interesting way to look at it. I've never really thought of it in terms of orders and how the different philosophies regard these orders or deal with them. I tend to think of it, and I think here in the United States at least, when you're talking about politics on the right versus politics on the left, it's best understood in terms of attitudes toward the role of government and attitudes toward individual liberty versus the common good. I think a right-wing person, a conservative person, again, just from the American perspective, is someone who favors a small government, a very non-intrusive government, a government that has a very laissez-faire view of economics that will just sort of let the free market do its thing, and has a very optimistic view of the free market, considers the free market to be a great arbiter of conflict and a great leveler of the playing field. If a free market is a place where everybody can compete and if you have a good enough idea, you can prosper. And a conservative is also someone who has a very individualistic view of society, where the rights of the individual trump the good of the community or the rights of the community. Individual liberty might be a little higher than an individual's responsibility as a member of a society. Whereas the left would be more comfortable, perhaps even more aggressively in favor of a larger government that takes a more active role in society and takes a more active role in the economy, would favor stronger regulation. And someone on the left would probably also see individual liberty more in terms of the role that the individual plays in the community and in the society. I know I personally, as a left-leaning person, as a liberal person, view it in terms of sort of a sliding scale. And sometimes you have to prefer the individual's rights, and sometimes you have to prefer the common good and the good of the community. And it just depends on the situation, and you're constantly making adjustments based on those two things. But in general, I think those are the two ways that I would separate right wing and left wing: role of government and attitude toward individual liberty versus the good for society. Luke Lucas. Hey Steve, my name is Luke and I am 19 years old, and my little brother Jimmy is 13, and we enjoy watching you. My brother became an atheist at 11, and he is interested in the great debate, but we struggle because our mother and father are anti-gay, tongue-speaking, exorcism, prophecy, Illuminati-believing pastors who would disown us if they found out. Anyways, my question is, how do you feel about young teens or kids watching your channel? And my other question is, what universal advice do you have for young teens or kids regarding atheism in general? Thanks, and my little brother says hi, and that he likes your channel, and that his favorite segment is 5 Stupid Things from the Mr. Steve Show. Have a good day. Well, thank you, Luke, and thanks to your brother as well. I'm glad you guys watch. My universal advice to teenagers who have decided that they're atheists is really, it's the same advice that I would give to anybody, which is don't ever become dogmatic about anything. Always question your position, question your beliefs, learn what other people think, learn the arguments against your position, and try to understand them so that you can make them as well as the people who sincerely hold them. Don't stop asking questions. Don't stop looking for answers. Don't stop being critical. Don't stop being skeptical. I think it's just very important. It doesn't mean you can't come to conclusions. You should come to conclusions, but you should come to provisional conclusions, and you should be open to changing your mind if you find something out that compels you to change your mind. It says that maybe you should change your mind about something. Yeah, so, and as far as young teens or kids watching the channel, as long as it doesn't warp you, I mean, I don't really make the videos for any particular age as far as audience. I don't have an age demographic in mind when I make them. I suppose the closest would be just people my own age, because I do things that I'm interested in. So probably people closer to my age would be more interested in them than people who are a lot younger or a lot older. But I have people of all ages who watch this stuff and enjoy it for various reasons. So no, I'm not troubled by teenagers or kids watching it, as long as you say your parents don't know about it, they would disown you. but in general, you know, if your parents are cool with it, or, I mean, I don't think I do anything that's too objectionable. I don't think I do anything that would, like, warp a child or ruin somebody's childhood. Toby Benson, maybe. I don't know. It might be, when you contemplate the nature of Toby Benson and Jack McPherson's association, maybe that would be kind of disquieting for a young person. But then again, maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, please keep watching. Thank you for watching. I don't have a problem with you watching. What do I care anyway? I'm not your fucking dad. Do whatever you want. You're not my kid. Watch whatever you want. And you're 19 anyway, so what am I telling you? But your brother's not my kid. He can do whatever he wants. And you're a grown man. You can do whatever you want to. So thank you for watching. Hexer Psy. Hey Steve, question for you. Liberals and conservatives sometimes accuse the other of living in a bubble. Any advice in general to stay out of an echo chamber? You know, it goes back to what I was just telling Luke in the previous question. Listen to what other people are saying. Listen to what people who don't agree with you, or who hold different positions, or who come at things from a different background. Listen to what they say. Seek out opinions and positions and arguments from people who don't hold your position, or who are not members of the groups that you are members of, or who identify as things different than what you identify as. Seek out diversity of opinion. It's very important. And try to keep perspective. Don't allow yourself to believe, or at least don't allow yourself to believe for very long, for long stretches at a time, that that your bubble is all that there is. You know, remind yourself that you're in a bubble. Like, I see this on YouTube a lot. People who get involved in YouTube stuff and arguments within, like, the atheist community, let's say, or arguments within the gamer community, they start to treat these issues as though they're important on a global scale, as though they're really, really important. And it's helpful, I think, to realize that outside of your bubble, nobody gives a shit about any of this. This isn't actually all that important, except to a rather small group of people. I think it's important to remind ourselves of that. And it's not just in those two communities I happen to mention. It's in a lot of things. These sorts of cultural interests are very small and very sort of regionalized, you know. And I think it's helpful to keep a perspective on that. And I don't know, as far as breaking out of the bubble, keeping yourself out of the bubble, maybe every once in a while, it would help to subject yourself to something that's out of your comfort zone, that would shock you out of your bubble. Like a bolt of lightning. Someone mentioned in a comment a little while ago in a previous video that I'm not really trying to do segues anymore, and they say that that's a good thing, and I can't help but agree. So I'm just going to say that it is now time for
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
A skeptical owl. What is your favorite site to hang out on besides YouTube? I guess Facebook. I spend more time on Facebook than I do YouTube, to be honest. Other than social media sites, I read the AV Club a lot. I read The Onion and The Dissolve, like movie sites, news sites like Think Progress. I'm on a lot. I don't know, stuff like that. YouTube Punk, lightning round question. Outside of atheist and scientific-oriented YouTube channels, what are your other favorite channels? Cinema Sins is good. Honest Trailers is good. What else? There's a lot more. I don't know. Red Letter Media. Red Letter Media is great. The Mr. Plinkett reviews. A lot of people bring that up a lot when they ask me questions about movies, and I'm a huge fan of Red Letter Media as well. Pull it out. I said no. Lightning round, sugar tits. Number 1, do you hate it when you take a shit and the hairs between your ass crack catches the poop like a net? Number 2, have you ever wiped your ass after taking a shit and you got a little ass jelly on your fingers? 3, have you ever tucked your dick in before you were 100% done peeing and the piss ran down your leg? Thank you. The answer to all 3 of your revolting questions is yes. I hope you're happy. Are you happy now? Good. My sexy kneecaps cock tip experiment. Lightning round. Hey Steve, my little cousin, being raised Christian by his parents, came up to me and told me in Sunday school they were teaching him that we are supposed to love our enemies, so he asked me, should we love Satan and his fallen angels? And does God and Jesus love Satan and his fallen angels? I personally never heard of this question or never thought about it. It scared me a little. How should I, as an atheist, respond to him without forcing him into my atheism? And also, what do you think of a kid asking a question like this? And also, what do you think of the question itself? Thanks for answering my other questions. Love the channel. Well, you should just say what you think. Just give your opinion as your opinion. Don't try to tell them that this is like the definitive transcendent truth. Just tell them what you think. And as for what do I think of a kid asking questions like this, it's a great fucking question. If the kid is asking questions like that already, I think that the kid is on the right track. So all you have to do is encourage your little cousin to keep asking questions like that. And I think he will be just fine. Farmer Yeti, on a scale of terrific to I want a divorce, how awesome is it being married? Oh, it's terrific. I can honestly say my wife and I will have been married 5 years this year, and we've been together for 10 years altogether. I've never wanted a divorce. Ever. We've had fights, we've had ups and downs. I have never, ever, ever thought that I wanted a divorce. So I would say terrific. But your mileage may vary. I don't know. Other people get married and they don't seem to like it very much. So I think it's a very individual sort of thing. It's based on personal experience. But for me, it's been terrific. Lord Toast, if a transporter accident were to transpose you with your evil, beardless mirror universe double, what do you think would happen to your YouTube channel? Thanks. Well, if it's my mirror universe double, he would be like the opposite of me, so he would probably be really loud and obnoxious and mean and hostile, and I would probably wind up with like 5 or 6 times the subscribers. Drew White, what is a critically acclaimed movie that you despise? Oh, I wouldn't say I despise it. It's hard to think of a movie that is critically acclaimed that I despise, but I was not a fan of The King's Speech. I just didn't think that was that great of a movie. It was Oscar bait. It was just sort of tepid Oscar bait. And it was not only critically acclaimed, but it won a shit ton of awards. So that's what I would say. Oh, Ashley has a suggestion.
What about The Help?
Oh, The Help. That's even better. The Help. Oh, The Help was vile. The Help was a fucking horrible movie. Yes, that's even better than The King's Speech. The Help was a shitty movie. Oh, and Precious. Oh my God, Precious was terrible too. But not everybody liked Precious. The Help got really good reviews, and The Help was fucking horrible. Brad Baumander, lightning round question. Who would win and why in a 3-way fight to the death? Grumpy Cat, Creationist Cat, or Audie? Audie would win because, first of all, she's not declawed, so she's got like knives on her hands. And second, if it looked like she was going to lose, I would just step in and kick the shit out of the other cats. So, she would win. Trust me, Audie would win. Precambrian Lullaby. Hey, Steve, question for the lightning round. Rain, sun, overcast, day, night. What is your ideal weather? What do you like most when you step outside? Personally, I love the smell of petrichor, so anything that smells like that is aces in my book. Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I love the I would love to step outside like right after it has finished raining, with like the sun coming out. That's a really beautiful time for me. But in general, like what kind of weather just in general that I prefer, I would say probably sunny but not too hot, you know. But as far as like what I like when I open the door, yeah, there's nothing quite like the time right after the end of a rainfall when the sun has just come out. It smells good, it feels good, it's just great. Nuno Uno 001, Steve, if you could correct any one social, economic, religious, or political conflict in America, what would it be? I would want to correct income inequality. I feel like that would have a very broad effect, positive effect on a lot of other problems. I feel like if we could do something about income inequality, if we could somehow guarantee a living wage to all people in the United States that would lift people up out of poverty. It wouldn't get rid of racism, it wouldn't get rid of sexism, but it would allow people in those groups who have been marginalized, who have been sort of passed over and oppressed by society. It would empower them in a really real way. And I think it would help a broad range of problems, not just poverty and income inequality. I think it would have a very positive effect across the board on all kinds of issues of underprivilege and discrimination and disenfranchisement, things like that. So that's what I would do. I would do something about income inequality. I would want to have a living wage for people. Yeah. I don't know if that's really, I guess, class conflict. That's kind of a conflict. That's the fucking answer that you get. Hey, and that was the last question. How about that? Before I get out of here, of course, as always, I want to give a shout out to a very deserving fellow YouTuber. And the shout out this week goes to JJ Talkz. You know, I've said before, I love giving shout outs to sort of young, growing channels that you may not have heard of before. And this channel, JJ Talkz, is definitely a growing channel. She's close to 5,000 subscribers, which is awesome, and she deserves many, many more. JJ has a great channel. She is a member of the Progressive Alliance. She is a contributor to the collaborative channel, A Path for Progress. And she has a very regular schedule for her videos, which is something that I appreciate because I do the same thing on this channel. She has Topic Tuesday, Advice Wednesday, Fun with Friends Friday, and Q&A Saturday. So she does those videos every week, and it's those particular topics on those particular days. It's a really cool format. It's very regular. It's very predictable. You can set your watch by by JJ Talkz, and she's good. She's a very sort of liberal, progressive, social justice-minded person, very articulate, great thinker, great talker, great presentation, great production on her videos, just really well done all around, and very, very, very much worth your time and your subscription. So check out JJ Talkz channel. It is really, really awesome and highly, highly recommended. That's the shout out this week. Well, that's it. I'm done. How about that? These usually take fucking forever, but I think I got through this one pretty good. So thank you guys for watching. As always, leave a comment on this video asking me your question for next time. Ask me anything about anything. Nothing is too serious. Nothing is too silly. And I will be back to answer as many of them as I usually say as many of them as I possibly can, but honestly, it's as many of them as I feel like answering in the next video. So thanks you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.